Today, I would like to walk you through an industry initiative that we are starting right now, which is the AI-driven research and innovation radar. As you see by my name, I have worked for a very long time as a researcher. I have a PhD. I've published a lot of papers in different areas, and at the same point in time, I'm at the moment more on a, let's say, more on an AI product development implementation trip than the scientific research that I'm not actively doing so much anymore these days. You know, when you have a business. Writing papers is less often KPI and bringing in revenue is more often KPI, but well, that's just what it is. I have on the past 2 years with a team of about 10 developers here in Germany and across the ocean in the United States implemented 2 dozen applications and use cases where we're using large language models for relatively complex knowledge work, specifically in the area of using large texts to extract some information. I have, let's say, I have dealt and I deal with the problem that I think you all can kind of relate to in my daily life so much. Let's say when I was still pumping out paper after paper after paper, I spent a significant time of my day reading just the latest papers that were published out there. So the typical sources for me as a computer scientist, typical sources where I usually looked for aggregation, apart from the couple journals that I've always shortlisted and where I know the dates when they were being published. Was of course ResearchGate, for example, over here, Google Scholar, and all of the other repositories where you can find with a semi-structured way based on keywords what you're looking for. So as Paul has asked before, yeah, you as a researcher have your specific niche, your specific industry, and your specific, let's say, research cycle, a circle where you have authors that you know, where you have journals that you know, and where you have articles that are relevant to you. But sometimes there is articles published that would be relevant to you, but that are in a complete different, I call this the research bubble. And breaking through these bubbles and finding out another bubble that is relevant is not super easy because it is just a huge amount of information overload. You can't read all of the papers that are being published over there. We have a pile of over 2.9 million new, on the one hand, what we call peer-reviewed articles. On the other hand, also, industry relevant articles that are published every year that are not necessarily in industry review. So if you are here in your bubble and you have your 4 dozen authors that you know that do something that is relevant to you, but there is somewhere in a different bubble doing something that now has an interesting part that could be relevant for you, and you don't know anybody who is pointing you there, there are big chances that you just miss out on a specific part. With interdisciplinary research, this becomes even more problematic because the bubbles are even further apart by that. And we have seen in some studies that I'm not alone in my frustration. About half of all of the research out there are frustrated with their current research and filter and reading workflow. And it's not only about discovering what we have, but the main challenge is also about, filtering and selecting the things that you in the end would like to really go deep into. When I want to dive deep into do a deep dive into a survey paper, then I'm spending half of the afternoon just reading that survey paper and trying to understand that. Or if you have a new concept paper of something where you really need to go deep into and understand the methodology and everything that is happening behind the scenes, to see and say, okay, is this a good paper? Is this a bad paper? Was the method of experiment good or bad? That's there. So Please, I'm trying to make it a little bit, trying to make it quite broad. So I'm trying to address the people that are more in the quantitative methods, but also people that do research more in qualitative with qualitative methods. I, as an engineer, I'm somewhere in between, trying to do things, but that's a different story. Um, so the question, that question bothered me and my colleague Oliver, isn't here today, but will join the next time. Is that it was so bothering that we have developed a concept for a personalized AI-based research content selection to cut basically down our preparation time in half. And we are right now looking for people that would like to work with us and co-create and bring that concept to life while tweaking aspects here and there. So people that would join, for example, could have an influence on which directions we are going. So if Paul, you would like to join our initiative, and you say, "Hey, for me, it would be very interesting to use knowledge graphs," then that might be, one of these shapes that we have. So we have worked in what we call innovation radars for quite some time. So innovation radars, everything in corporate innovation, where you are just trying to stay ahead of the new trends that are coming. But of course, when you go deeper into the classical R&D and the scientific side of it, that becomes even harder. So we know kind of the processes behind, and we have basically offered that research and innovation radar is a service done by us manually to a bunch of different companies that also benefited from there. So we know kind of the methods that we employed, and now we would like to get ourselves out of this equation and build something that is self-serve and basically that does our job and just leaves more people to benefit from what we can do and what we can get out. And therefore, we have written a concept paper, and I would like to show you a little bit of that concept paper here today, and especially the one very nice picture that we have here, in this case, on the left side. Emilia, is that the right thing visible?
Yes, looked good.
Good. So when you think about, we start here at the very top, and the very top is basically all of the raw information of articles, of research, of industry studies, of case studies, of everything that you can find out there that might be relevant to you. And at the end of this funnel, there is a researcher. And this researcher wants to basically not go through 1.9 million papers, but want to have the specific information that is interesting for them in the next year. So when we go on the source layer, we actually have two type of raw information sources that we have. We have on the one hand scientific publications, and we have non-scientific publications or gray literature, or however you would like to call it in that case. So in scientific publications, of course, we have peer-reviewed publications, the classical sources like journals, like conference proceedings, etc. And in those, we have different articles. But also we have a lot of preprints, a lot of non-peer-reviewed articles that still might be interesting to us. Of course, the scientific process with peer review has been established for many, many, many years for basically a sake of quality control. But sometimes I had it, so I was researching in blockchain back then. It was not really a thing that everything that was happening in the world of blockchain was published in a peer-reviewed journal. So there were a lot of publications also in archive sites or different. Or if you are in medical and you think back about dark times, COVID times, when we have just seen that there are so many different people that are now have to publish something and that have to research regarding COVID. We just have seen so many also decisions that were made based on preprints because the cycles of a publication of a journal are just too long for that. Yeah, so It's the typical frustrating process. You as a researcher, you are there, you work for months to create your paper, to write your paper, then you hand it in, and then you have to wait for 3 months until you get something out. If you are in a A or A star journal, that is not so unusual, sometimes even longer. So archive sites is also something that we shouldn't neglect, but that makes our problem even bigger because it is an even bigger size of papers that we have. And then on the other hand, we have non-scientific publications, news, forum, and discussions. Now, news, I don't mean tabloid press. With news, I mean information like, for example, what right now in my field of expertise is important. The EU AI Act has been published, and it says X, Y, Z. That's something that is usually not a peer-reviewed publication. Otherwise, that thing would have never seen the light of day. But that's a story for a different day. But everything that is kind of in that news and regulatory bracket is also relevant to us at some point in time. And our technical concept basically says that these are our raw data sources, and we are going to build basically a initial data acquisition layer. The data acquisition layer basically has a connection to the typical sources that we have via an API or via web scraping or via whatever, and basically streamlines the content so that we can put it in our next step into a relevancy filter. And that relevancy filter is basically just ruling out all of the things that are not super interesting for you. So when you search an archive, you know that you have these hierarchical categories. You're in physics and you're in astrophysics, and you are in that area. So they are built like a tree. So that's what I call the general search focus. You can right now also do that by yourself, so that at least that filter by going through one of these things. But there is no streamlined, or let's say no unified interface to do that across many of the different sources. I've just given you an example for archive, but in ResearchGate or in others, it looks different. But that's our first filter that is tailored then to you as the researcher that goes out. And this filter uses basically most of that metadata that we get from a paper and a large language model. So the metadata that we already get with classifications or keywords, for example, and publication journals and publication dates, etc. And sometimes also the abstract. In most of the cases, we get an abstract from one of these sources where we can go to. And based on that, we basically extract context data. That's what we call it. The one is the metadata that I was just talking about. The other one is the extraction of the semantics in a classification module. And all of that, let's say, meta and publication data comes into a database, in our case, a vector database, so that we can later do a similarity search with a large language model and with retrieval augmented generation. The next level that we have here, which is the next filter, is the attention filter. If you have ever dealt with attention economy, it's quite an interesting research field. We have to focus and make a triage on what are the things that we are going to focus on. And therefore, we are taking as a config parameter your detailed search topics as a focus. We have not defined yet if this is going to be completely with a large language model, and we are doing only the mapping completely with a large language model interference, or if we're taking a step in between to translate that basically into a knowledge graph and then map with the concept and with the details that we have in there. But the idea is that afterwards, after this filter, the attention filter is there, we have a selection of pretty interesting publications for us. And then it goes actually into the details, where we are not stopping at the abstract, but where we are getting into a full text retrieval on a semantic level. That's more than just summarization, but it's also interpretation, contextualization, and also the relationship to your own research and your own interests that you have at that moment. And we put that only for the things that are important to you in what we call the semantic detail database, including the full text retrieval and all of the context information. So, and then the idea is that this whole innovation radar, you basically execute once a week, month, day, whatever interval it is that you would like to have. And we create basically from that, also with a large language model, a specific report to you. And that we are going to, for example, send out via an email. Where you as a researcher, you get a very in-depth report where you can read the first page and say, hey, these are the interesting research items that that Radar has just put on my radar. I'm looking. I can decide now how deep I want to go into. Step first is looking through that list of the things that were suggested. Step two is reading the summarization, the interpretation, the contextualization that we have made with the model that is part in a later page of that report, and then deciding if you actually want to go deeper and get. And what we also in that stage envision is that we are building basically for all of the papers that are relevant to you, a custom retrieval augmented generation chatbot where you can basically talk to all of these papers and get questions answered. Yeah, there is like a lot of applications out there that do something very high level with that. So this talk to PDF is nothing that is completely new, but doing actually very good talk to PDF on a scientific level where you have actually things that you can count on is not super easy. I've seen that in 2,000 projects last year that people who do not really understand it are just trying to use it and then ask themselves why they get hallucinations. You know? And that's exactly our approach that we have at the moment. We have created here a high-level concept paper that is quite broad at these sites. And we scratched here a little bit of a road to implementation. And that's exactly the next thing that I would like to talk with you about, our road to implementation. We want to implement this concept as part of an industry initiative to get many different views and create an impactful product where you are not having this, this siloed view on only the things that you have. So we generalize, but we want to have a collection of different organizations that basically contribute to us not building a point solution for one use case, but having something where a lot more can benefit from in the end. Therefore, we have already, my colleague Ollie and me, we have already created this concept. We have assembled a team that is ready for implementation on a product level, but also on a community managed level. We got some tech partners to supply us with existing technology. Also, of course, we're not going to build our own large language model. That would be completely out of the scope that we can achieve here. And we have also other tool providers where we would basically help make this process here more efficient. And what we are looking right now for is supporters that are willing to go with us in the implementation of that concept that we have here and be with us in 2025 as a partner in that here, basically shaping the features that this product has, the approaches that we have, giving us feedback and contributing to the funding that we have here, while we take over the technical implementation. We are going to supply a bunch of credits for AI because AI are a commodity or large language model completions are a commodity market right now, and do the implementation that we have here. We already have some interested parties, and we are looking right now for more supporters on that side. What we're not looking for people that say, I can implement that myself. This is not helping right now. We are specifically going for something that where we have a consortium of different people that are all willing to contribute to the same core, and so that we have a product basically for everybody. And we do that for the reasons that we are putting resources to lower the costs for all. If you take five people, five organizations doing it all siloed for one, the prices are or the overall costs are higher than when you pool these resources and you have these kind of cross-pollination effects to the other side. We want to have broad validation, so sometimes that's what we have always seen. We build application from a very specific point, and you get kind of blind over the time. And we want to have really something where we can also, quality-wise, have something that scales across a whole industry and to increase our impact that we have. Yeah. So there will be the source code of that new part will be made open source available, and we will also host it as a SaaS for people that want to self-host it. There is probably going to be an innovation summit in July of 2025. We were gathering all of the people that are in this consortium, and we're having a little bit of exchange. In the meantime, we have community exchanges, roundtables. We have PR and dissemination activities planned at this moment, and a whole a bunch of different other topics that we have. And yeah, me, you have heard talking about me now for quite some time. Yeah, I am a researcher turned tech entrepreneur and working in the field of AI for a lot of projects where I've seen a lot of the things that I've been talking to you about. With me leading that program is my colleague Ollie, who is an industrial engineer turned economist and who has worked specifically in manually doing these type of radar activities for corporates for more than 25 years. And we have done approaches like that for big companies all across the world and research institutes together. What does it take to become a supporter? We have different plans for different, let's say, for different budgets that you have here. The smallest one starts at 2,400 USD a month or 24,000 for the whole year. And then where you can have, let's say, different features and different parts. That's the minimum that we need to have to become one. And then we are looking for one or two organizations that would like to become an anchor in the gold plan area over here. And we are getting into a point where this is not really an initiative that ends at the end of 2025, but where this becomes basically a living product with an open core, and we are going to build upon that and make that bigger and bigger, and get more and more validation, more users, and more use cases also across the whole industry for that. And yeah, that's basically my introduction to our new industry initiative that we are launching right now. This official start day will be the 1st of January 2025. We already have people gathered with some interest, and we are right now in that process of gathering the consortium members all together and getting the finances in place. That's my very high level overview at this point in time. And if you have any type of questions, feel free. We're a small round today to just unmute yourself and or write it in the chat if you would like. And I'm here for anything that's on your mind. Emilia, have we got any questions in the chat so far?
Not questions, but I just sent the survey form. We would greatly appreciate if the attendees can give us their feedback.
Okay, good. Yeah, I'm gonna open up this picture here again. And we have that concept picture over here. And yeah, if you have questions, now's the time. If not, if there's no questions whatsoever, there's no need for. But I see Jim coming back from podcast mode to a mic mode. Jim, what can I do for you?
You won't be surprised that I have a question. First of all, it looks like a very interesting project for the area that I work in, safety and research, and we would love to be able to have some kind of tool to be able to send out with some key search words, gather material in various areas and summarize those materials. So when you say things like streamline, summarize, take a lot of data and squeeze it into meaningful, digestible chunks. That's absolutely something that's of interest in a very narrow area in which I work. So that's particularly helpful and sounds like it's very interesting to be able to see how accurate it can be and the importance of the keywords and sending it off and the amount of time that it takes and things like that. So that's of particular interest to me. The other question I had is whether or not you would make this report available. I've been searching for it online, haven't been able to find it. And if it isn't yet published, whether or not you'd be able to share that.
Oh, this concept paper. Emilia, can you send the website, please? In the link. Yeah, we have that. We have it,
Yeah.
and we will.
Oh, okay. So if there's a link,
Yeah, and you will get after this webinar, you will get also an email with the recording, and with the that paper specifically attached
great.
to you, so you get it directly to your inbox. That's not going to be a problem.
Thank you.
And with all that, I'm also happy to also have a deeper discussion with you. If that's of particular interest and you would like to be part of that, I'm more than happy to have a follow-up call. We are sending out an email to everybody, and then Emilia helps me a little bit in scheduling that and planning that. So greatly appreciated,
Thank
Jim.
you.
Thank you very much. So I also saw that Paul, did you also wanted to say something, right? I saw you unmute a couple of minutes ago before Jim was going, or are your questions solved? I can't hear you, Paul, unfortunately.
Sorry, I think I was on mute. So
No.
I was curious about the size of the company, how long you've been around, and what is the size of staffing that you're looking to fund with the outside investment?
So we are here a company of about, including external experts, we are about 15 people. Yeah. We're 15 people, and what we are right now looking for is, I don't want to make this a too big and unmanageable project. We would like to have a rather small but team with very highly focused and highly specialized people, 2 to 3 developers, then plus someone taking over, let's say, community management and consortium management, and a project manager basically talking to the people that are involved. We are trying to keep it lean in that area as much as we can. It's not going to be a 10 million project. This is even though you could make one of it, but we want in 2025 start really from a small and lean team with short development cycles. So our goal is that there's at least every month a new increment to that product, and that's why we have this approach of getting people in that give us validation as fast as we can and basically co-create that thing with us on that way. Jim.
I just wondered whether you could walk through a little bit of your vision of the SaaS, what was software as a service. And so I envision, without obviously having your explanation in detail, that down the road there might be clients or users who would log into the website and perhaps use the tool once it's been tweaked after thousands and thousands of hours of the computing in the background. This would be a paid for service. And then someone would go in, say, for instance, someone in research like myself with some keywords, and that would be the way that you envision that software as a service somewhere down the road. I'm not sure my question is very clear. Could you talk a little about that?
Yes, for let's say first level software as a service, is the question is, are you going to deploy and maintain it yourself versus are you just taking it as a service? That basically means the service for me, and let's say in the first horizon, bundling the information, so let's say bundling the access to the proprietary large language models that we have, so that the individual people don't have all of that overhead. I mean, if you would like to do that for 20 researchers, you basically have to have someone in your organization who takes care of maintaining that whole software. And one of the SaaS offerings would be basically to get that away. The second level of, let's say, how can we also have a feedback loop in there that is training and then puts into a specific collection of collected knowledge. What you were suggesting is for me at the moment in Horizon 2 as a SaaS, but I see there great value. I absolutely great value, but we're trying really at the moment to do it step by step. But at the moment, just you don't have to deal with the AI, you don't have to deal with the orchestration, you don't have to deal with the deployment and maintenance. So if you don't want to do that, take the version that we give you as a SaaS. If you want to host everything by yourself and do it yourself, just take the things. But you are also, the open source will have external dependencies, right? We're not going to train a model from scratch, so there will be external dependencies that you have to manage to other tools. Anyhow, if you want, you can do that. If not, we just give it as bundle. That's the vision for now. Everything later up to your shaping, of course.